Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Primal Season 1 Part 2. Now, I'm saying Part 2 because I didn't know that there was going to be more episodes for this and that it had been split up like this. So I'm like, hey, okay. So I was able to get through the rest of them and heard that they're doing a second season, so I'm like, yeah, alright. So this continued the kind of episodic nature of most of what's going on, but yet there still is the through line of the passage of time with Spear and Fang. So we start off with the first episode of like Scent of Prey, dealing with the complete aftermath of the whole 8 men thing going on, and how Fang is critically wounded, and Spear was at first like afraid that she was dead, but then was able to see, oh yeah. And the thing is, we get throughout there's all those 8 men bodies strewn about, and we see slowly but surely buzzards coming in to peck at everything and get everything, and we see him getting water to bring to Fang, and in a rehydrated, getting mud to seal the wounds, which is really awesome. But then he starts to like dig a kind of trench so that way he can build a litter and pulls her out. This thing is like a couple tons, and he's able to drag her out to safety, but they're still being followed by kind of hyena dog kind of things as well. And you really get that kind of sense of just dread as he's able to finally get her to kind of a cave that he's able to kind of build her up to and get her protected in. They also then get attacked by these weird kind of bug things that really mess him up. Well, not mess him up a lot, but it kind of like screws with Spear a little bit, and he goes out to kind of get more water, but he of course runs into the dogs and everything, and he uses the bugs as kind of like brass knuckles to kind of just beat the holy hell out of them. And the thing is, Fang was trying to get up at one point. He's like, no, stop, you're not in shape yet. But they gets to a point where she comes out and like, screw these dogs, and you get this awesome action scene as they're like all taking him out. We then get to the next one, which is really more kind of horror slash zombie inspired. And at first, we get introduced to this kind of like really long necked dinosaur kind of troop, kind of like a bronchiosaurus, and they're doing their stuff. They got their like eggs and all that in their nests. It's like, oh okay. And then there's one freaky ass crazy like it's like a kind of weird like flesh eating virus kind of thing that's making this thing mad. It's like going rah, and then of course it bites one of them, and of course it dies, and we see that the madness kind of leaves its eyes as it's puking up blood and finishing its death. Of course, we then see this bitten one start to change and turn, and it's the horror. It's really a testament that there is really not a lot of dialogue and how they convey the story with such minimalism in it, because we see this dinosaur that really can't speak. So we have all of its actions and movements instead to really convey to us what is going on. We see its decaying, we see it trying to get water and everything, and it just starts to go mad at one point and starts attacking and brutally annihilates its own herd. And it's like, shit. And of course, Fang and Spear are like, the hell? And then we get as it's trying to pretty much become the movie monster kind of thing of just, it's trying to attack anything because it's gone into that madness of like this flesh-eating rabies kind of thing. It's like, shit, just out of nowhere, if you're not careful, one weird kind of bug will do a weird fucking thing. It's like, oh shit, man. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They get to a point where they kind of get away from it, but it slides down in the ravine next to it, so they wait it out and try and sneak past it. If that doesn't work, it gets up, and it's like, it doesn't care about its self-preservation. It gets like wounded in all kinds of different manners, but they're able to get onto essentially the top of a volcano that's still got like bubbling magma geysers and everything, and they're able to get through it to a certain point, and even the long-necked dinosaur falls into the lava, and it's still on fire, and you can still see it like going mad and pain and everything as it's like hurt. And we'd seen that it even ripped its side flesh out to get out of the ravine, and it still didn't give a shit. And just seeing it die like that was just fucking nuts, and seeing the look on Spear's face as he had to kind of deal with that was just like, wow, I feel you, man. It's really fucked up. And the next episode, I think, is my favorite of this second part of the first season, Coven of the Damned. And we see this thing about these witches. Because we see Fang and Spear, they're walking, and they're able to see what's going on. They see this one dude tied to this thing, as we see these witches doing this some kind of ritual to summon something. And we see this, like, a pterosaur fly in and is being controlled by this head kind of witch that is able to transform into some kind of, like, I would term it some kind of eldritch deity. Now, granted, eldritch deities don't always have to be, like, tentacly Cthulhu kind of things. That's just usually kind of what the thing is, but some kind of other thing, and it uses these glowing things to go inside the dude, steal his life force, and then creates this child that is then given to one of the witches. We see one of the other ones kind of like looking out on him like kind of weird, like whatever. But of course, the pterosaur is able to see that Fang and Spear are looking in on him. It's like alerts them, and we see him kind of dashing through the forest, but of course they get captured. Spear to be used in the next kind of sacrifice, and Fang taken by the outside witch that we had seen. And of course she's walking by, and she sees that Fang is trying to get out of the control of what's going on, because Spear's yelling at Fang to try and break the spell and like what's going on, you know? And of course this intrigues the witch, and she uses her magic to be able to look into the past. And of course we get a retread of what happened with Fang and with Spear. And it's really kind of nice because we see her go through, fast forward through certain things, but really connects with Fang at the loss of the children and what happened. And it was with minimal dialogue and everything. She gets back out because she had stopped time at this point, and everything's kind of frozen while she's going through and doing this. She hugs Fang, and it's beautiful because she felt Fang's pain losing that child. Her children is like, wow. And of course she does the same thing for Spear and realizes that he has lost his family. And she just, you could see her feeling horrible about doing this kind of thing. She gets kind of control of Fang and walks out. We see her go into her hut and do the same thing for herself. And we see that these witches pretty much their method of reproduction is what this eldritch kind of elder witch is able to do, and transform into that one kind of form and create other children. She had been given one of those children as well, but she lost her child because she fell off of a cliff. And it's just like, God, seeing her in that pain and everything, and see that she empathizes with that pain. It's just really well communicated and well done with like no dialogue whatsoever. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen certain shows with even dialogue that's just like, oh, come on, that's just kind of weird. And this one, where, yeah, it's kind of iffy if you're into the kind of more episodic nature of this. I can totally understand wanting more of a straightforward plot, but seeing their adventures and seeing this one, where all of this is communicated through being shown to you, through all these different kind of things of like mannerisms, how they're acting, what they're doing, seeing how she's like, she freaks out, and then she sees over the cliff and seeing her wailing and screaming and crying that she's lost her child, who was a cute little kid, and it's just like, oh God. And we see her getting Spear ready for the whole thing, but she ain't gonna do it. She takes Spear's spear and takes out the pterosaur, and then is able to kind of she gets Fang to put Spear on her back, and they run off, and she transforms herself into a bird, as the head witch has transformed herself into a giant wolf, and they're fighting and everything. But we see, and this is really one of the most effective ones that I've seen of what's going on, because she gets like pretty much injured, and she transforms back into herself, and we see that she's about to have her head chomped on by the wolf, but instead they transfer back to what's going on with Spear and Fang, and we see that suddenly Fang's eyes go back to their regular color, and they both understand that she's dead. And they kind of thank her and walk on, and we get a nice scene at the end where the witch is reunited with her lost child, and they hug in a field, and it's really fucking good. Granted, it's a sad ending, but there's that happiness. It's really a bittersweet ending, and it works very well. The next one that we get into is this like night feeder, silent predator, as we see essentially like a horror movie again kind of thing, as this thing is able to go out in the darkness and take on pretty much like a saber-toothed tiger and these kind of dinosaurs that resemble triceratops, as it's just fucking taking them out. And of course, Spear wants to kind of go after this and be like, that's a danger, we gotta take it out. Fang's like, don't you do it. Don't investigate it. Don't do any of that shit. And they keep going on as everything is pretty much getting kind of like decimated around them as they see the carnage that has ensued. But they run into it anyway, and Fang's able to kind of knock it back. But it tries to get onto Spear, and Spear's he's like flailing it around, but like hits and light is what's on as the weakness of this creature. And they pretty much, now granted, I wouldn't advocate for starting forest fires like this, but they use it effectively to ring in the monster, and then he throws his flaming spear at it and kills it. It's like, it was awesome to see them tactically take down this destructive creature. So the last episode we get into is like the Slave of the Scorpion, and this was a very kind of cool one because it introduces kind of a new member into this group. So Spear and Fang are kind of like fishing and doing their stuff. Of course, we see Spear gets his little fish, Fang gets her big one, and then they see this human pop up out of nowhere. Now, this is the kind of most human-looking human that we've seen so far. We've seen other kind of groups of kind of like strange, kind of different kind of people. I like how this is very Conan the Barbarian kind of different kind of age, kind of caveman era, because you see all different kinds of people. You see the ape men, you see all different kind of people. You see kind of Neanderthal kind of in what's going on with Spear, but he seems to be that kind of bridging of learning different kind of stuff. And we see this woman pop out of nowhere, and she's got this wood collar around her. She's got metal bracelets on, and she's getting pretty much like chased by this like aquatic dinosaur that Fang and Spear are able to take out. They finally kind of catch up with her, and Spear kind of wants to trust her and be like, hey, I don't mean any harm, but Fang's like, I don't trust your ass. Trust your ass. But he's eventually able to kind of get her to kind of settle down as they kind of get their group stuff together. And we kind of learned that she's pretty advanced. She knows how to cook food, and she did it. Fang likes it. Spear not so much. He just kind of wants his kind of cooked meat or his raw meat, and he's kind of fine. But he doesn't do it to be like an asshole. He's like, I'm not really much into, I'm going to term them yams, and what she kind of found. And we see that she's able to kind of make archery kind of stuff with a bow and arrow as she's doing all these kind of things. And it's like, all right, cool. She knows how to do some stuff. And we get to a point that she's getting tired of the collar around her and everything, and Spear and Fang are able to take that off, as well as the armbands, and she's really kind of connecting with the group. And eventually she tries to tell him her name, Mira, but we don't get that Spear understands her completely yet. But she is able to kind of draw everything, and we kind of get her story. And again, it's just a testament to what they're able to convey without the dialogue. We see that she was part of a group. Some invaders came, enslaved her. They're going to take her away to someplace. And this is kind of setting up what I would think in the next season would be a kind of villain that they're going to have to deal with. And she was able to escape, and that's kind of what she does. And also at night, she also offers prayers to the moon, because she wants her people and her family to be safe. And that's what she's doing. And it's kind of cool to learn that stuff as they're kind of walking everywhere which way. And we see that she really does kind of effectively work into the group, because we see Fang's trying to like get up this boulderish kind of impasse, and Spear's trying to kind of help her along, but he kind of like shouts at her. But what Mira does is she like gets some grubs and kind of lays a track and gets her up that way onto the safer kind of things. And they're like, yeah, this is working out. The thing is, they're in this top kind of cave, and she gets captured by these ape men. And of course, Spear has to use his spear, uses kind of the bow to launch the spear at some ape men. It's like, holy crap. But they get through, but they find that the ape men have been taken out by bows and arrows, and we see footprints and prints that have like shoes on them. So it's like, okay, these are more advanced people. And we see that Mira is like screaming for help, and she's on a boat that's going out further and further into the water. And the last thing we get is that Spear says her name, the first kind of like word that we've seen Spear communicate like that. And it's like, wow, okay. So hopefully Spear and Fang go to save her in their adventure. So I'm kind of excited to see kind of what they would do in the next season. It's, of course, this is definitely a more mature kind of show, so I would say that kids know it's, even though it's animated like a cartoon and done by the dude that did Samurai Jack, dodge. There's a lot of blood. This is definitely more the people that are in for Conan and unrated Conan kind of stuff, or like rated R Conan kind of stuff, more than like kids, so no. And I would definitely say this is good for people that like action and character development. Now, granted, it's not in the same kind of character development that you get with like more kind of dialogue. It could eventually get to that place, but this is like primeval, like prehistoric kind of stuff set in like caveman days. So they gotta convey that story in different kind of awesome ways that, granted, might not be some people's cup of tea. Some people are like, okay, I kind of want some more dialogue and everything. And if you're really dialogue focused, this really wouldn't be for you, but that's not a bad thing. It's just not what this one is serving. So, those are my opinions on the second half of this season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.